Hello and welcome to the Everyday Leader series on Happy Saturday. So, we are here today with another amazing guest, Mr. Tsibela Tao from South Africa. Tao started his career as a theater anesthetic assistant at Mediclinic Bloemfontein, and over the last 20 years, he has held various positions from sales to executive roles at leading medtech companies like Medtronic and Zimmer, working in both the African and global markets. His key achievements during this time was spearheading the creation of BioSkills, a state-of-the-art clinical training facility focused on providing access to previously disadvantaged groups. Currently, he is the CEO and founder of Innovative Medical, Africa's first fully integrated orthopedic manufacturer. He is deeply involved in regulatory harmonization, strengthening surgical systems, and developing surgical skills. He also has chaired the working group of South Africa's MedTech Master Plan on localization. His company currently supplying 3 countries and seeking regulatory approval in 6 more. So I'm very excited today to welcome Tsibela Tao and my guest co-host, Dr. Simba Kaja, an orthopedic surgeon from Zambia. Tao, welcome to the Everyday Leader.
Thank you very much, Ananya. It's always nice having a chat with you guys, uh, classmates of my people. So that's fun. No, thank you very much for the invite. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I hope Simba will join us in a few minutes. He's having trouble with connection, but you and I we can go ahead and start our conversation. So um, we have a tradition here on the Everyday Leader where we ask what the phrase "everyday leader" means to our guests. So, what does that phrase mean to you, and what's your experience as an everyday leader?
Yeah. Look, for me, it's more about doing and actually doing, not the plans, not the policies, but actually doing the things that have a direct impact on the everyday lived experience of a regular person. And in this case, because of our industry, will most likely be a patient, right? Just how do you make that patient experience better on an everyday basis? And institutionalize that. That's for me what an everyday leader is, leading that across multiple countries and industries. That's what it means to me.
Yeah, that's very interesting. You're right. And the fact that you mentioned it's, leadership, a lot of people, especially from healthcare background, think leadership in the very small context, including myself, in the very small context of our immediate environment within the healthcare. But you're talking about industries and you're talking about across countries, right? So that's a different kind of take on the everyday leader that I've heard so far on this series. Um, with that, let's go to Innovative Medical. So, Innovative Medical, you are at the forefront of Africa's first fully integrated orthopedics manufacturer. And I want to know what has inspired you to establish this great company with a huge impact on sustainability and addressing surgical inequity. And what was the process when you started the company, and how do you how did you integrate your passion for social impact into your business strategy when you founded this company?
Yeah, it actually happened by accident. I never set out to do what I do now. That's a very interesting thing. So when I was running, I became an executive in some of these blue chip MedTech companies.
Mm-hmm.
And in both of them, when I was really in charge, well, when I was at Medtronic, I was in charge for the whole of Africa, right? And when I was at Zimmer Biomed, I was in charge of Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And my view was the African market is yet to be tapped in. It's relatively, there's a need, but that need is not met. Let's go aggressively into that market. And the response that I got then from my bosses was always no, right? You can't. And I had to understand why. And eventually I was told, look, a lot of these African countries cannot afford these equipment that we sell, these technologies, the O arms, the pedicle screws, the regular plates and screws. And my view then became, okay, then maybe I need to understand how the pricing model is set, right? What's the cost of manufacturing? What's the pricing model? And as soon as I understood that, I said, guys, compared to our manufacturing cost, we can be able to reduce this pricing and we can make money. We can still make our numbers through volumes. And that was still not acceptable. And I eventually decided, look, there's a big enough problem because I have eyesight challenge that I've had since I was very young.
Mm-hmm.
And what had happened was I used to travel about 300, 400 kilometers every time to just go get my eyes tested. So I know that experience and I know how it affected me. I miss school. I'm waking up in the middle of the night, traveling for hours on end. It was not nice. And that experience has led me to then say, I wouldn't want anybody else to go through the same thing
Mm-hmm.
or from an orthopedics point of view, because at least here I feel like I had a bit of some power. Unfortunately, and then I learned I actually don't, right? So then I left and then I started innovative. When we started, we were hoping to be a distributor. But then I realized being a distributor does not solve the primary problem of pricing because we still don't have more control over that.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I changed the trajectory. I decided, okay, I'm going to get licenses, I'm going to get some IP in order to be able to manufacture these things. And that's how we started really with Innovative Medical. And that's how we ended up where we are now.
Yeah, wow, that's such an interesting story. It's amazing how you're doing this great thing by accident. Not so many people can say the same about the accidents they have in their life. So, more power to you. Can you talk more about how you secured funding? Because we talked about it, unofficially about how you secured funding, but it would be interesting for the audience to hear. So, can you touch on that?
Yeah, so not so long ago, I was in Kenya and I was asked to speak to the innovators there. And after speaking to them about exactly this, somebody tapped me and said, hey, man, you gave them a bit of a raw truth. Hey, you're going to scare them. So, how I funded this was I put all my money into it. I've sold my houses, my properties that I've had. I've sold cars. I've taken my parents' money. I've taken some of my friends' money. Literally, that's how we've built it, right? We bootstrapped it until even now we are still bootstrapping.
Mm,
Um, but now it's different because we are generating some revenue. As a result, we are using that in order to expand. But there are some discussions in the background around bringing in funders. But literally, that's what we did. We've been bootstrapping this thing. It is a small price to pay
mm,
for the discomfort, for my own personal discomfort and probably my family's discomfort to a great extent,
mm,
um, for well, in comparison to the how big the challenge that we are trying to solve.
mhm,
Across globally, injuries are now accounting for majority of the deaths. Right,
mhm,
Africa has 2% of the global vehicle accounts for 2% of global vehicles, but we account for 20% odd of vehicle injury, automotive injuries,
Yeah.
and deaths, right? So you can see how that number is lopsided, and those are the type of problems that we are really trying to solve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. I've never seen somebody so driven by passion and, just driven to just do good by others and for others. So, it's very inspiring to hear such an individual journey that started off, with such a big challenge, especially when it comes to funding. That's usually, even if you have some idea of what you want to do and you have the passion, money is always going to be, the deal breaker at the end of the day. But for you to take it up on yourself and take risks with your personal assets and, involving friends and family and doing this, I think it's something that reflects on how what kind of leader you are, because leadership is paying sacrifices as well. So thank you for that lesson. So Simba, can you hear me? Simba, are you with us?
Yeah, that line is giving him problems.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so I guess till Simba's network stabilizes, we can go ahead with the next question, which is basically his question, but I'll ask it for him. So Simba wanted to know, in rural Africa, many patients need life-changing orthopedic implants like hip replacements or fracture fixation devices, and obviously, like you mentioned, access is a challenge. So
Mm.
what are the biggest barriers preventing these patients from receiving timely and appropriate orthopedic care, and how do these challenges compare to, urban areas, since you have been involved in many different African countries and different setups?
Yeah, the greatest challenge to access, at least to from an orthopedics point of view, is the cost of these things.
Mhm.
They are incredibly expensive. Nobody can afford them. Um, but they are not incredibly expensive to make, right? So
Mhm.
once you make them and you are not profit driven, then you can make them more accessible. But the other challenge then becomes regulatory,
Mhm.
right? Regulatory is extraordinarily expensive. So to give a good example, to in each and every country, you need to register the products,
Mhm.
right? That can cost, it can set you back somewhere around easily $6,000 to about $100,000,
Wow.
depending on the structure in that country. If for a country that says you must register a product line,
Hmm.
it's a more cost effective. But cost effective does not mean cheap. It
Hmm.
means that's where you are hovering around 6 to 10,000 USD, right? But expensive can come up to somewhere around closer to a million USD, where in countries where you are registering per product, right?
Wow.
That's the biggest challenge by far.
Mhm.
Now, what we have sought to do, and this is where the guys at there's something called AMA, by from Auda Nepad, right? It is led by very competent people, and those what they have done. It's There's a lady called Nados Bekele Thomas. She's the CEO there, and there's Chimwemwe, who's from Malawi, who's been heading regulatory on the continent. What they
Mhm.
are trying to do is, we were in Egypt not so long ago, where 8 regulatory bodies, the
Mhm.
biggest ones on the continent, the most organized ones, the ones that have the highest certification in terms of their processes. We call them LM3, right? Those regulatory bodies, they include Ethiopia. Interestingly, what we are doing is we are trying to get them to help peers in their region. So we will take Kenya, we'll take Ethiopia, we'll take Nigeria, we'll take South Africa, and then everybody else in that region will then, if you get an approval from a regulatory body in Kenya, you
Mhm.
can use that status in order to get a regulatory body, regulatory approval in Tanzania. You don't have to start from scratch and
Mhm.
pay the same amount. That's
Mhm.
what is done on that front. It's a
Okay.
very forward-looking type of policy. Um, and the guys at Auda Nepa, the ARMA team, are really working at it. We signed, that thing was signed in about a month ago in Egypt, and 2 weeks later, they were already operationalizing it. So that's where we come in. Although it was more focused on pharmaceuticals,
Mhm.
because that's what everybody understands, that usually the biggest problem, not necessarily devices. But we are now having a chat with them, and they brought me in to say, look, you understand devices, help us navigate this territory. And that's how we are trying to navigate these things in order to remove these barriers that then lead to lack of access to our people.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting about this body that you mentioned. The AMA body, you said, is it an independent body or is it an extension of any bigger organization?
It's an extension of NEPAD.
Okay.
NEPAD is an IAU organization.
Yeah.
So for all the African countries are member states in AU. As a
Mm.
result, they are automatically signatories to these policies.
Yeah. Wow. It's great to see that, AU, obviously AU is involved in different sectors, in on the African continent. And it's great to see that, sustainability as the front and center of the AU, um, you know, uh, goal when it comes to Africa and healthcare specifically, because with having the one of the largest population, I mean, couple of countries in Africa are, lead in population size in the world. So it's inevitable that current problems need, local solutions instead of the way it has been done over so many years. So it's great to hear that. So Simba, I think you're back. You can go ahead and do your follow-up questions.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, this is correct.
Yeah, Tao, how are you?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm
It's
good.
good
I'm
to see
good.
you.
Good to see you
Yeah.
too. I mean, I'm excited, obviously, when Anna told me about what she's doing now. I immediately told her, look, this is quite exciting. And I'm really happy that she invited me to come and, discuss about, the great work you're doing, the issues that we have to deal with in Africa. Yeah, and I can see that you've continued to be passionate about making sure that orthopedic implants are available in Africa. To try and bring it closer to our people here in Africa. And I'm happy to see that the fire it keeps burning. Yeah, so I think maybe you've touched on a number of things that we previously talked about, and you've also talked about those things now. I'm quite interested in which models of distribution in the countries that you have worked in are working in terms of making sure that you know, like the rural part of Africa where maybe trauma is happening, the well needed implants are getting there. Sometimes you have shortages in manpower, but sometimes you have manpower and expertise available. But how are we getting these implants available in like the rural Africa settings? I don't know what you've seen so far in the countries that you're working.
Yeah. So that's actually a great question. So there's two challenges, right? Sometimes, indeed, there's no skill, right? So there's no, for instance, in some rural areas, in a lot of rural areas, there's no orthopedic surgeons, right? So because our pool of orthopedic surgeons is very low, right? It's just low. We need to increase that. And upon realizing that is a problem, we took a decision as Innovative Ortho Medical that we will plow back 30% of our revenue to education and training off of the gates, not profit, plain revenue.
Mm.
And you would be interested to know that currently we have about 10 students who we are sponsoring. Simba has met actually one of them, who we are paying for their fees to study, to specialize in different specialties. We don't only sponsor orthopedic surgeons. We look at what that specific country needs. So in Zambia, currently we have about 5 Basotho. Two of them are doing gynecology. The other two are doing ophthalmology. The other one is doing pediatrics. We are all paying for them, right? Because that's what that country needs. In a country like Zambia, we have not even entered Zambia, but we already have Mpumlwana, who's an orthopedic surgeon. Simba will probably know him, who, because Matimba is now here in South Africa, he's doing a spine fellowship, so that he can be a qualified spine surgeon, right? Because what is happening is, there's a guy in Zambia called Keith Simfukwe, who is a neurosurgeon, and they are the neurosurgeon society in Zambia is preparing to start a fellowship, a spine fellowship of their own in their own country. So they needed a spine surgeon. We took Mpumlwana, brought him to South Africa. He's currently here. He's going through that fellowship, and he will go back to Zambia, and then he will work with the neurosurgeons there, and then they can start this fellowship. On a full ride, we are paying for everything, right? But we are not yet in that market. So those are the sort of things that we are doing to address the skills shortages. But then, on top of the skills shortages, then becomes an issue of, from a supply chain point of view, how do you then get these things to rural areas? It depends from one country to the other. Some countries we enter ourselves, we register a company there, but in majority of the countries, we partner with already big local distributors, right? Who already have the people in each and every corner of their country, and then we ship out stuff to them. They spread it throughout the country. We give them support. We come and give them training, and as a result, we are able to then get these solutions faster to rural communities. And we like doing this thing where when we enter a country, we don't go to the capital city. We start in the rural areas. We are entering Zambia. We are not entering Zambia through Lusaka. We are entering Zambia through Ndola and the Copper Belt and coming down. And that's one of the things. When we entered Lesotho not through Maseru. We entered through Mafeteng, which had the highest volume of trauma. We went there, we asked that decision be sent there, and then we supplied the things there. In fact, we donated at that point the equipment there, and then we were able then to come back to the city. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's a very interesting model. The fact that you start from rural areas instead of the capital city, was that your model from the get-go, or did you get to that point from past experiences of entering capital cities at first and then trying to go rural? How did you come to this way of doing things?
It was not what we set out to do. It's what, when we started going to multiple countries, what we found was, in the capital cities, there's some access, usually at the base, that's where the best access is. But in the rural areas, there's no access. So if you go to the rural areas, the competition is much lower there. Right. So from a competition point of view, it's much lower. It's much easy to enter through there and then come back and fight whoever has the hold of that market. So it was more of a commercial thing, but it makes a bit more sense to us as a company that is not purely commercial, that's more developmental in nature. Actually, there's people who are saying we should have made this thing an NGO, really, because we run it like that sometimes. So, but that was the thinking around it.
Okay, interesting. Simba, go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, I keep dropping out, but thank goodness I keep coming back in. Tao, have you found any use in finding a trauma register available in any of the countries that you're working? Because I think, like where I'm talking to you from Zambia, we unfortunately are still trying to get a single trauma register going on, and I think what it is when you've got a trauma register, you kind of understand the pattern of injuries that that we are facing and that need surgery, and it's easier for you to budget or to procure and distribute what is most needed in those areas. So I don't know. Have you come across any trauma registers in the places that you're working in, and has that changed your sort of like your distributorship, your number of implants that you are you're giving out or budgeting for, and is that helping with redundancies or making sort of like keeping only the stock that you need, the type of implants that you need for that particular area?
Yeah. So the issue of trauma registry is quite an interesting one, right, to us. In majority of the countries that we work in, there's no trauma registry. So we set them up ourselves.
Right.
I went to one of the countries first countries I went to was Malawi. And when I was in Malawi, I met a lady there called Linda Chokoto. She's an orthopedic surgeon. She's an upper limb type of surgeon who has now went full academic. And what Linda had done was she had built this beautiful, very good model in terms of a trauma registry, right? And I went and spoke to her and I said, Linda, I like your trauma registry. Can we please roll it out across the continent in our own markets? And she gave us permission. And we were then able to roll that out in Lesotho. And everywhere we go, we are now rolling that trauma registry that was designed primarily by Linda, and then we just make a few changes to make it contextually correct for each and every country. So we set them up, those registries. We because if we wait for people, because remember, when we go to a country, eventually we need to speak to government. And when we speak to government, they don't have the right numbers. So we are unable to then project what exactly they need, right?
Right.
Because they don't have the correct data. So it just helps when we say we will even give you this thing for free that we will then use so that we can be able to project what the cost is going to be in the future for government, and they can be able to plan from a financial point of view.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. I think
066
I'll be
0.
happy to find out, or to be connected to that register, because I know we've been talking about you coming to Zambia, and it'll be nice if that could be something we can discuss, so that we are everyday leaders. You can share the register, and we set you up to come to Zambia as well. I stay in a place called Copperbelt in Zambia, where we've got a lot of trauma. We've got almost all the mines, 80% of the mines, if I'm not making a mistake, are in the Copperbelt province. So we get a lot of injuries from, with the mine workers. And then we have a lot of trucks moving on our busy roads and our busy highways. The roads are poorly lit, they're single lanes. So you get a lot of road traffic accidents, and up to now we don't have a register. So I'll be happy to talk about the work that Linda has done, and if you can extend that gesture to Zambia.
No, that's easy. We're gonna do that. I came to Zambia for like a weekend for something, for a funeral of a friend, and I keep on saying I need to go to Zambia. But I think it's close now because I'm just waiting for Keith, and we are there. I'm definitely gonna spend a week before the end of September. I would have spent a week in Zambia, and when I come, I'm gonna come to the Copper Belt as compared to coming to Lusaka, right? So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, wow. Those are interesting points that you mentioned. Usually when you go to different countries and you ask, okay, so why can't we do local manufacturing for specifically consumables like in orthopedics or other surgical specialties? And it always comes down to raw material, just because you have to use high grade metallic alloys that are suitable for the human body, and so many other things that go into the nature of the material that you use for such implants. So how do you get access to your raw material so far, and have you faced any challenges when it comes to that?
Yeah, look, the raw materials problem is is actually a secondary problem because the first thing is you need to build a manufacturing plant, right?
Yeah.
These manufacturing plants don't come cheap. They come at millions or tens of millions of dollars. And unfortunately, in the past, what used to happen was nobody was willing to finance them. But Africa CDC has done splendid work. They've put up a team that is led by a guy called Abebe Jinetu, right? That specifically they are focused on building manufacturing capacity. Their last presentation, they were saying they are currently building about 8 pharmaceutical plants across the continent, right? So just for that sustainability and sovereignty from a pharmaceutical point of view. And then there is us now who they are helping us to start this plant that we are building. They are helping us with access to finance through African Bank and so forth and so on. The raw material that we are currently using, we are getting out of Europe. South Africa is fortunate enough to have distributors for medical grade titanium and other alloys. So we are getting it through those guys. And we are looking at how big we can become. When we eventually become big enough, we are thinking we may have to set up our own foundry of some sort that makes this type of skill. There's a discussion that I'm having with some mine in, and this is the first time I speak about this. I haven't spoken about it ever. There's a discussion that is currently happening with a mine company which operates in Zambia and the DRC regarding can they give us raw material. And those guys are saying that we are more than happy to give you the raw material. Do you know how to run a foundry? We told them we don't know. They said we are more than happy to be shareholders in that foundry when we eventually set up because we have the necessary skill.
Yeah.
So there's that discussion, and hopefully in the next 2 to 3 years, we're just going to have to wait until we are in enough countries and we need enough volumes to be able to pull something like that up.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I think because sustainability is the core question. Yes, you've paid a lot of sacrifice to get it going, but how do we make it sustainable? And like you said, the question of raw material is one big question. The question of building the plant itself, the manufacturing plant, is another one. Funding, and there's so many and also skilled workers. There's so much to go when we go into the details of the work that's done to manufacture those implants. So it is essential to incorporate locally existing suppliers like mining companies and things like that. So it'll be very interesting to see, and quite an interesting collaboration across the board. Really, um, can you tell us more about the plan that African CDC has? What's the ultimate goal of what they're trying to do when it comes to building local manufacturing capacity, and how do they plan to implement it?
Yeah. So the what has become something that was horrible, but it has now become a blessing, is that we had COVID. And during COVID, Africa could not get the necessary vaccines. The global north was hoarding these things unnecessarily. A country like Canada was holding a lot of stock that they did not necessarily need, right? And the lessons that Africa CDC had at that time showed them, and majority of the countries really, it gave them, once COVID was done and Africa CDC was going back to these member states to say, guys, we need to ramp up our own manufacturing capacity. There
Mm,
was more political will now
mm,
to accept that sort of ask from Africa CDC.
mm,
And as a result of that, right, they are now building about eight. So the idea, they talk about um, sovereignty, healthcare
mhm,
sovereignty. What it actually means is that we, as a continent, we need to have capacity, internal capacity, to manufacture everything that we need in
mm,
order to deliver healthcare to our people,
mm,
from pharmaceuticals to medical devices. And when you look at institutions like the University of Global Health and Equity,
mhm,
they have a program. Not only are they training academics in multiple streams, but they also have these accelerators for innovators
mhm,
in-house, right?
mm,
And that's very useful. Kenya is doing the same through an organization called Africa MedTech,
mm,
right? And the Rift Valley funds. So they are pooling, and in East Africa, I can literally see them working towards addressing the issues of skill, the issues of innovation, the issues of funding. In fact, there's a conference that I'm be speaking at towards the end of the month called Africa MedTech Conference, right?
mm,
And they're addressing these challenges. So that's what Africa CDC is doing, but there's a whole host of other entities which are working at these things. A university like Makerere University, it pushes out a lot of biomedical engineers, right?
mm,
Because they have decided about 10 years ago that they are going to have a biomedical engineering program in order to resolve this skill. And those graduates are coming out with the adequate skill. Now they need jobs, and we need to ramp up production and manufacturing across the continent so that they can be employed and use their own skill and perfect these skills and knowledge.
yeah.
It,
Wow. Go ahead, Simba.
yeah. So I just wanted to just I'm thinking from the top of my head. Um, would you consider having? I mean, when you say Africa, if you look at it as as a one place, as a singular place, and then as you travel and as you meet different types of organizations and people, would you consider using the strengths of, for example, you said in one area they are strengthening their biomedical, experiences, and in one area they seem to be having materials available. Where now you sort of, like Anna said, that you should use the local expertise to sort of distribute your efforts, and then in each country, you have what, like distribution hubs or like surgical stores. Why I'm saying this is, I don't know, of course, from your experience, um, if what we've done in Zambia with medicines is the government has put what they call central stores or uh, medical hubs, where
Yeah.
once they procure medicine, they take and then just store it there. And then each time a center needs that medication or whatever it is, they go and order. It just place the order centrally, just to cut on the what they call the last mile, distribution or acquisition. So I don't know what your thoughts are around that, because like you mentioned, equity, access, and you are trying to create a sovereignty within Africa, where if someone funds the manufacturing machines, it won't be in every country. It will be in one specific area. Yeah, I don't know what your
Yeah.
comments are on something that you have.
Yeah, so it's actually something that we are already doing in a way or working towards. So ideally what we want from, so there's a continental view and then there's a country specific view. From a continental view, there's a body called Africa Pooled Procurement Program. Right. It's led by Africa CDC. What happens there is they are trying to get the entire continent to procure certain things at a continental level, right? So
Uh,
if you want a specific technology, you are procuring it from a continental level and then distributing it to countries, right? It becomes much cheaper. But also from a country specific setup, what we are trying to achieve is to get to a point where governments buy centrally, right? So the central government will buy, the Ministry of Health will buy for the entire country. Once they've bought for the entire country, they then distribute these things based on need to these nodal uh, 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 medical stores in that
right.
specific country.
Mm,
Sorry, what that does is it allows us to, it lowers their cost significantly by up to 50% in some cases because of the volumes, right? So there's a cost benefit. But also, what it then does is it allows for very easy and timely access to these things to multiple hospitals. So, if you were to set up a central store in like the northern part of Zambia, right, the northeastern part, you have
yeah,
a medical store there which supplies all those hospitals around. When you look at the turnaround time, it's about an hour or two, right, of driving. That makes it much more sustainable. And that's a model that we encourage, that's a model that we believe would work, because all then that is being distributed is the implants themselves. The instruments, they stay in the hospitals. And one of the things that we've done, and we really believe in this thing, the finance guys don't like it, but we believe in it, so we push them, we push back. We tell them we don't sell instruments, we manufacture them, but we don't sell them. We place them. If you order implants, that's what you're gonna use, right? That's what you want to buy. You don't need to be buying instruments as well. We will ship the instruments and you'll have them as consignment, and you'll just keep on restocking your implants, because instruments are expensive,
Yeah.
but unfortunately you are not getting they are not going to be put into a patient. So if you are spending, if you have a hospital as big as yours buying instruments and implants at the same time, that almost triples the cost. But if you remove the instruments, then you are just getting reusable. So those are the type of things that we are trying to do in order to address those challenges.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense because that model is used everywhere in the world except for Africa, which is
Why not in Africa?
which is very odd when you see the best example, which have very similar population density, and also um, disease type of disease burden that they have is India, right? And
Yeah.
India is the best example on how they um, you know took over the manufacturing capacity when it comes to pharmaceuticals and, like you said, consumables, medical equipments, even big technologies. They are now competitive on a global scale when it comes to innovation in the medtech arena. So we really have to take a page from their playbook and use it. And like you said, there's we need to put greed aside and think of the long term, long term win-win solution to the current problem, the existing problem we have. And like you said, giving instruments, for free, replacing group instruments and selling consumables just makes so much sense in every way and has been proven to work. So we'll take a quick water break and then we'll be back with more questions.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so we are back. I wanted to ask both of you a question. And my question is especially you, Simba. What do you think is our role, as the surgeons, as the people who actually use those equipments that, people like Tao is trying to produce locally? What is our role in this whole picture?
Simba?
Sorry, I'll let Tao go first. My network is a little bit static. Sorry about that. I didn't get your question well. Maybe Tao in the moment can answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Tao.
Look, I think the role that you guys can play, mostly as orthopedic surgeons, because remember, you're the end users, all right? You may not be the buyers, but you're the end users. And what I have found is this was so interesting for us when we found it. We realized that one of the challenges to get into the market was the orthopedic surgeons were looking at us like, hey, you are an African and you are manufacturing these things, and there was skepticism around that, solely on the basis of that, right? Because at the end of the day, you need to have the surgeons being confident in this product so that they can then advocate with whoever has in procurement, because the people in procurement, they don't understand these things.
Yep.
And that was happening even though we have all these global certifications like your CE mark, ISO certification, FDA approvals, and all of those things, but it was still happening, and it still happens in a lot. But I can see now at least there's a bit of change, because we are now we are getting a bit well known from a branding perspective, but it's a challenge. So that's the one thing that you can do. But the other thing that you can also really do is we need to push to support. So I was looking at Fitzum says you need a grant for these
Mhm,
things,
mhm,
right? I I don't think. Look, you need money, right?
mhm.
In one way or form, but I don't think that donations are the way to go. I actually hate donations, right? Because it makes these people who are walking around with a basket asking money from one place to another.
Mm,
I think my view is that if there's if you can demonstrate commercial viability, which is I have orders, give me money to fulfill these orders,
mhm,
right? it's a very so it's a much more simple sort of transaction, and those orders are going to come from the surgeons to say, yeah, we want these implants and we want them from this specific company,
Mm,
right? And you fight with those procurement guys to say, no, 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 those guys are offering these things at an affordable rate, so it's not about a money issue. I'm happy with the quality of these things,
mm,
so you guys must use this company. I don't see any reason. And we fight this battle together, and over a period of time it will become natural for us to be doing that sort of thing.
mm. Yeah, great point. Simba, did you kind of get the sense of the question? I was just asking him, what is the role of us, the end users at the end of the day? We're the ones who are gonna request those implants from whether it's our institution or depending on the role that we have in government offices, and we're the ones to put in the request. So what is our role and how do we advocate and how do we support this local manufacturing?
Yeah, so yeah, I think I get the question. From my point of view, I would talk about two things, right? So as an end user, I would talk about what we call uh, efficiency and effectiveness, right? So these two things really need to be understood. So effectiveness is I start the process I start the process from the beginning to the end. So if I'm going to start a surgery, I need to finish it. I need to be effective to fulfill that goal. However, efficiency means that I use minimum resources to achieve the same goal. So you find that, like in orthopedics, I'll give an example. We'll use what we call plate and screws, right? I usually tell those I'm teaching and I'm operating with, every hole is an opportunity. It's not a must, right? So if you've got a plate that needs six screws, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to put all six screws, right? You need to learn, right? So that way you don't end up, with wastage, and you don't you kind of become a good steward of these implants because they're really hard to come by. I was just looking at one of the comments that was given here. My eyes were just like popping out, and this person says, they remember one time one patient died with an intramedullary nail in situ, and they were forced to
Yeah.
take it out because it's expensive. You know what I mean? I mean, those are some of the stories that you hear on how important these implants are. So from the end user, I think it's important to be effective, and it's also important to be efficient. Yeah.
Yeah, those are excellent points. I agree. Efficiency is crucial to make sure we can use the resources that we have for the long term and to treat as many patients as possible while still maintaining that standard that we aim for. Yeah, I also think we have to know our circle of influence, right? So each and every one of us have the power, especially as you become a senior consultant. You have a say as to what needs to be purchased for your patients, and you kind of also become member of different working groups, whether it's at the level of institution or at the level of the Ministry of Health in your country. So our involvement should have the goal of supporting local manufacturing in mind, because Tao mentioned an important point. He said it's a question of quality. Even though they're certified in every sense of the way, like any other manufacturer, they may be certified in European standards, ISO, and everything, but still, just because manufacturing is done in Africa, we question the quality. And he's talking, and I understand this because I can see some of us doing that, even our colleagues and amongst us. So I think that's what we need to do. We need to uh, get rid of this mindset that quality is only associated with expensive one and something that comes from across the ocean. So we need to advocate that, and we really need to support local manufacturing and hardworking people like Tao to help address those things. And it's funny how we talk about those things. We don't trust our own producers, because I've had an experience where I did an intramedullary nail for a pregnant woman who's almost term at the time, and she had a road traffic accident. So it was quite a stressful surgery, because we could potentially induce labor, as you know, because surgery is uh, a stressful insult for the patients. And on top of that, intramedullary nail requires a lot of manipulation and things like that. And you can't use image intensifier, or questionable use for image intensifier, because she's pregnant.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing, right? And
Yeah.
at the time, clinically she had no other injuries, and obviously we only focused on the femoral fracture. Then once I operated on her, and once she started ambulating, she started complaining. I mean, she gave birth just fine and everything. Nothing happened during the surgery. She gave birth at the right time, on the expected date of delivery and everything. And she started walking and things like that. And as a surgeon, it makes you happy. But she started complaining pain in her knees. And clinically, there's really nothing significant, but I wanted to send her for an MRI. But I was faced with the question, is really the implant MRI compatible? And
Yeah.
I hate to talk about this, but it's the reality. And I called the supplier, the people, we work very close together. And I called the supplier to ask them, and they said, you know what, we cannot give you any reassurance.
Yeah. Yeah. So what has been my lesson, and I found this shocking, is that so I go into theaters and I work with the guys. I help to plot these things. I have the technical knowledge. You know, actually, some people ask, "Are you an orthopedic surgeon?" And I say no, and they get shocked. But what I have found is that a lot of these people who sell these things, the distributors, they don't have the adequate training and knowledge
Yep.
of actually how they are used, and the issues around compatibility with MRIs and so forth.
Yep.
That's why guys will slap you with the cheapest affordable nail,
Yep.
right? And then you need imaging for it. Because I understand the challenges. I don't like nails that require imaging, right?
Mhm.
I use proximal and distal targeting arms,
Yeah.
because I understand the environment that I'm working in. In a lot of in Lesotho, there's a private hospital, the most famous private hospital there, does not have a CM,
Mhm.
right? So whenever we're not doing major procedures, we're just doing open stuff that we could see.
Yeah.
And those are the type of technical things that you must be thinking. And that's why I insist that we will use titanium. People say it's expensive. It does not have to be.
Yeah.
At some point, it was the latest technology. It was expensive, but it's no longer expensive.
Mhm.
In fact, when you look at the cost between titanium and stainless steel, the difference is now less than 15% from a raw materials point of view,
Wow.
right? But because people are saying it's titanium, they still want to sell it at premium.
Mm.
And I those type of things. So in some cases, I'll walk in and I'll say, forget the issue of the pricing. We are going titanium, and you guys tell us what your budget, and then we'll supply you at that budget, and we'll see how we work it out. All right, because of exactly that problem. Because I know that eventually we are going to need imaging for something that has nothing to do with orthopedics.
Mm.
But now, because you have this an implant that has issues with imaging, then we have a problem.
Yeah.
So now, let's give our people the very best standard at everything, at the price that they can afford. And that's the subject that brings in a discussion around the people like asking me, so what do you sell this thing for? And I tell them, we don't have a price. We
Wow.
don't have a set price,
Yeah.
right? The price is country specific.
Yeah.
What is that particular country paying?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And they people get shocked. They say, no, no, there's no way you cannot have a price. I'm like, hey, your environment can only move. Your budget is already set. Tell us what your budget is. We will give you a solution that is the best possible for your specific country. We will ship these things. You will get them at a price that you can be able to afford. All
Yeah.
right. Interestingly, I have never had an implant where I lost money.
Yeah.
Never.
Wow.
Right. So it's those type of discussions that we need to be bringing forward, to be telling people these things are not as expensive as they make them. All right.
Yeah.
Because they are people to look expensive because of exclusivity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's branding. Like it works everywhere else and it works in medical in medical supplies as well. But it's very interesting. And I think as as surgeons we want something reliable, something because we are the people that the patients encounter and the patients place trust in us. And especially, when you work with a population like ours where literally we are the decision makers on the behalf of our patients, which is, I think, odd for the Western world. I understand, but for us they put so much trust, the patient puts so much trust. So we have to advocate for our patients with that in mind, and also obviously for the good of good practice in medicine as well. And I think you mentioned registry, but I think the other thing that we also need to work on is to get post procedure data or post operative data to support the good outcomes of using locally manufactured implants. And I think that's going to go a long way into helping countries accept locally produced supplies.
Yeah, but
So
Banyanya, sorry to interject. Right?
no, go
It's
ahead.
interesting to speak about post implantation civilians, right? So there's a lady called, she's at Vets University. She's an epidemiologist. She's doing a master's there. Her name is Sponsor. So what I have done is I reached out to her and I said, Sponsor, I need to do a study. Can you help me out? And she said, yeah, sure. Please send me some data. And we've been collecting data. And then I sent some primary data. She was not happy yet with it, but it's something that we are already planning on doing. And she'll probably is gonna kill me one of these days, because when I speak to her, I've been traveling so much. She's been waiting for me for over a month now, right? But it's something that we are very cognizant of, to say, in order to support these things that we see, these claims that we make, that these things are as good as you can get them, we need to be publishing some sort of data, right? And we've started that journey of collecting that data so that she can then be able to help us crunch it, and then we can push out some sort of a sensible paper to say, yes, in the period that we've been in that specific country, we've implanted on this many people, and we've never had implant failure or whatever the case may be, because it also improves trust when you come out and you are transparent and you have your data and it's published and you've done it right.
Yeah,
So yeah.
for sure. Simba, you want to add anything? You have any thoughts?
No, I think, Tao, you're really on the right track. I think you probably won't see immediate results, but I think in the long term, when you look back, you see how all these efforts, are going to add up, and eventually we'll be able to, have a different narrative for Africa. Yeah. So, I think that the more we keep talking about it, and just from this discussion, I already feel I'm ready to connect with other people in research, in the registers, and just to, if there's a way that you want us to add to your efforts, even if it's in a teeny bit, it'll be good to to get us involved. I mean, like this forum that we have, good job to Anna, because it's gonna be out there, and maybe I've seen it on YouTube. Some people are going to look at these videos, and they will see like, oh, this was a very interesting conversation. So that is also something that is additive to the efforts that you're putting, and also Anna, trying to get us all involved in being everyday leaders, not ad hoc. Like we go to
Yeah.
sleep and then we wake up one day like, I think I'm a leader. I need to do something with leadership.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
kudos. Yeah.
Appreciate the kind words, Simba. Yeah, so it's been great. It's been an hour, by the way. We've been chatting, and I know the three of us, we were not sit on the same table during the executive leadership course, and I suspect it's on purpose because you know what we were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My friends and I on the same table, eh? Yeah, no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
No.
and to be honest, Tao walks the walk, and it's this podcast on its own is really about people who are making impacts, because sometimes we wait for something, we wait to be leaders, but that's not how it works. Leadership is a day-to-day
Right.
practice, and you start with what you have. And Tao used, from what we just heard from him, used the drive and the passion he's always had, and he was never limited by the mountain of challenge that he had
Right.
faced, and went through them, and is now a force to reckon with, and a pioneer, and somebody with a huge potential to make a real impact when it comes to not just South Africa's healthcare, but the healthcare within the African continent. So, Tao, my last question for you would be: what's your ultimate vision for the medtech revolution in Africa?
Look, for me, I think I would be at peace one day if we get to one day when we eventually get to a point where each and every person, literally regardless of their location, their socioeconomic status, um, their education, have access to healthcare where they are in a timeous fashion that is appropriate to them when they need it. All right. And that's why it's not only about orthopedics, right? I work with the guys in oncology, I work across the spectrum because it's about healthcare, it's about building the systems, strengthening them, the ones that are already in place, and really making sure that each and every one of us, I'm a relatively finicky person, I'm sickly, whenever I'm traveling, one of my greatest worries is I need to find out what's the nearest good hospital, not the
Mhm.
nearest hospital, right? And I have to call ahead of time to ask, do you have these particular drugs? Do you have this? Do you have that? In case I may need it. All
Mhm.
right. I'm hoping that one day we'll get to a point where I don't need to do that. I just travel to anywhere and I know that everything is fine. Because if we get to that point, I will know that the local people there, and this is what I loved about in Rwanda. When I was in Rwanda, I was visiting UGHE, and I was with our good friend Barnabas, But there
Yeah.
are universities in a rural area. We drove like 4 hours out of the capital. In a rural area, in the most deserted place, that's where the university is. And their hospital is next to it. It's great. I love that. That's the type of thing that I want to see. And I hope that it will eventually get there.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I think there's so much to learn from the initiatives taking place in Rwanda for sure. They're taking a lead when it comes to, addressing healthcare inequity and, increasing access. So there's so much to learn. There's just so much happening in African countries, so many great thinkers and leaders, flourishing from every corner of the continent. And we just have to find a way to, get around the same ultimate goal, that will bring about change for generations to come on this continent. So thank you so much for being here, Tao, Simba. It's been great as usual. And yeah, we need to keep linking up again. I think we can help you a lot when it comes to evaluating, at least for your orthopedic implant, when it comes to post-operative outcomes and things like that. We can help you with that, because collecting the right data also means having the right results, right? So We're on board for that whenever you need us. Thank you so much for giving your time on a beautiful Saturday, both of you, and for being here.
No, thank
Thank
you
you.
very much for the invite. Um, Thank you as well. This is a little known truth. Ethiopia is carrying healthcare across Africa because you are shipping out specialists to majority of the countries. Every country that I go to, there's an Ethiopian specialist who's working there. So we thank you guys for the work and the helping other African countries. We appreciate it greatly.
I'll take the thanks on behalf of my country.
We need Ethiopian orthopedic surgeons in Zambia. So Anna, you're welcome.
Hey,
Specifically to Congo.
invitations, but invitations.
Thank you so much.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you guys. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Bye. So, thank you all, the audience, for being here and enjoying this episode of The Everyday Leader. You are welcome to see previously recorded lives and future lives, both on LinkedIn, on my account at Anania K and Masu on LinkedIn, and then on YouTube at the Everyday Leader podcast. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Till next week. Goodbye.